Hello, good morning. Thank you for joining me. I think I started 1 minute late. So as ever, if you're watching my YouTube live, leave me the hashtag live. And if you're watching later on today, next week, next month, and perhaps even in the run up to next Christmas, leave me the hashtag replay. And don't forget, you can always ask any questions you like. And in fact, I've got a question for you today. I've got two questions. Did you watch my pre-recorded video that was posted yesterday? So posted 3 p.m. UK time yesterday afternoon. I've been trying to use a little bit less flower foam in my arrangements. Flower foam is so handy to use, but it's not very good for the environment. So I wanted to know whether I could make an advent crown, and this is an advent crown, it's not a crown you wear on your head, an advent table arrangement without using flower foam. So what I will do is when this video has been published, when I finish the live, I will post a link to this video and then you'll be able to see how you can make your own foam-free advent crown. Good morning, Linda. How are you? So it's the first Sunday of Advent coming up on Sunday. So do you normally light a candle on each of the 4 Sundays of Advent? Let me know in the comments. I would say that this Advent arrangement with the 4 candles is a classic for any of you flower arrangers out there. I'm sure you will have something that's got 4 candles in it and you will light it. And if you want to know, good morning, Jane. If you are a churchgoer, you may not use, possibly you don't use white candles or possibly don't use red candles in your church advent crown. Do you use pinks and purples? So if you hop over to my free Facebook group, Flower Start World, and again I'll leave a link to that in the notes underneath this video, you will see that I have shared a blog post that explains what each of the 4 candles represent and why they are not normally white. So have a look at that one. As ever, I don't know whether you saw the reel that I posted on Instagram. You just need to think about being candle safe. Run up to the festive period, more candles being lit, and you should never leave a lit candle unattended. And also you should keep your plant materials quite low. So here I have got some twiggy bits which are quite high. So I need to make sure that as my candle burns down, I either take off these twiggy bits or perhaps I snap them or cut them to length. Oh, I think my candles are going out. Are they going to recover? You don't want to create a fire hazard, and especially because I have used dried materials. This is sort of a winterscape advent crown. I just wanted to embrace that last bit of autumn before we went everything, you know, red, gold and white for the Christmas season. So I'll have to see how long that stays alight for. So in this series, oh, I wish I'd had something I could put this up on. Perhaps I can. I've got my my very sad looking bucket of flowers here. They need to go on the compost heap. I wonder whether I can rest, oh yes, look at that. I can rest my candles on the top of my watering can, just to raise it up a little bit, and you can enjoy a little bit of flickering candlelight with me. So this current series of From My Garden, Live from My Garden, I've changed the title slightly, did you notice? And it's called Christmas from My Garden. So I thought it might be quite fun to sit with me on a Tuesday on the run up to Christmas and see whether we can take a close look at what's in the garden to see what we could use to incorporate in our Christmas decorations, whether that be something you've crafted, something that's much more traditional looking flower arrangement. So the first thing I thought I would do would be my version of a poor man's cinnamon sticks. So it's cinnamon sticks, you know what they are, the little but shorter bundles, short sticks, and quite often with our flower arranging we bundle them together. So probably put 3 or 4 together and we'll wrap a piece of raffia or a piece of string around it. We might attach a wire to it and put that into a door wreath or a table decoration. Joan says, you're going to try and make the twig wreath today. Ah. Oh, is that the twig wreath that... you'll have to tell me more about that, Joan. Is that the twiggy wreath that I made the video with Alexandra from the Middle Sized Garden blog? If it is, and you're in... Oh, yeah. That was quite a long time ago, wasn't it? And I still got 2 Christmas jumpers, and I nearly wore the one today that I wore when I filmed my video that went up yesterday, and I got that jumper as well. So again, if you want to know what Joan's going to be doing this afternoon, I will leave a link to that video as well. It's a really, like everything in floristry and flower arranging, the techniques aren't difficult, you just need to understand what they are. So Joan will be taking her long lengths of, she could be using clematis vine, grapevine, a pliable willow. Your sticks, your twigs need to be pliable and not so brittle and dried out that they're snapping. And Joan will have quite long lengths to start with, this length, lasso it round into a circle and then wind in and out, almost as if you're stitching. And then I tend to do, you can either tie it so it doesn't fall apart, or I sort of hold it where the last twig ended and slide my next one in and go in and out, and then you might run out of stick there, so I then hold it there. And the more twigs that you add in, the more strength, the more robust your wreath frame will become. To start off with, it all looks a little bit flimsy. You think, oh, what's the point of this? But with everything that you do sort of craft and flower wise, keep going. Don't give up. And the only other advice I got, Joan, is don't start too big, because I would say that it eases out a little bit. It sort of relaxes a bit. And it can be tricky sometimes to get a perfect circle. But as I say, if you wanted a perfect circle, you would have gone to the shop and bought a pre-made wreath. But what you can do, because there is some flexibility in the twigs, you can manipulate them a little bit. But the more twigs you add, the more robust it becomes, and the more round it becomes. So just keep an eye. Sometimes it ends up sort of a slight oval shape, but that might be, the look. You just got to sell it. You're an artist, and if you say you wanted a slightly oval skew wreath on your door, well, that is what you, the artist, wants. So don't let anyone tell you that you should be having a perfectly circle wreath. So a question for you, Jim: are you going to use the twiggy wreath bare? Or are you going to use that as the base of your wreath and then bind greenery over the top? So it's good to use either way, because the twiggy wreath is beautiful because you get all those offshoots. I think the one in the video, I think the final picture, I think Alexandra put fairy lights through it, so just left it really bare and minimum. But it can either be a wreath, the finished wreath as a twiggy, or you could use the twiggy wreath as the base for your more traditional foliage door wreath. So going back to our cinnamon sticks. So cinnamon sticks are really popular to use at this time of the year, that sort of quintessential scent of Christmas. I've already been burning my cinnamon candle at home. My husband was away for a weekend, so I made sure that when he came back, I'd done a bit of moving around with the furniture because we'd had a new carpet fitted at the weekend, and he took it reasonably well. I thought I'd make it all nice, and I know he really likes the scented candle for Christmas. So, and also what I sometimes do as well, I make my own cleaning supplies. So I've got air fresheners, a general sort of all-purpose cleaner, and a furniture polish. So because I make them in those little recyclable bottles with the squeezy top, combination of water, white vinegar, and for the furniture polish a little bit of olive oil, and then you put your Christmas scents in. So I will be sometimes if I'm topping that up, I just add in the new fragrance of the season, but I may well tip out the little bit of homemade cleaning mix I've made, start afresh, and then I'll put some cinnamon flavours and the flavours of Christmas in there, and it just sort of get, that hint of the scent of Christmas just starts to come along. So on the subject of cinnamon sticks, do you like including them in your door wreaths? They look really good with dried orange slices and pine cones for a sort of woodsy, folksy look. But I sometimes find that everyone else has bought the cinnamon sticks before you get there. So if you are a flower arranger, you'll be looking in craft shops for your cinnamon sticks. If you are a florist with access to a wholesaler, you've probably bought your cinnamon sticks absolutely ages ago. You've probably bought them in bulk. I think they come in kilo bags. because you may well be hosting your own Christmas door wreath workshops. So because the florists buy them in bulk in order for their workshops, and the workshops are probably taking place, well, probably nowish, I would say, because most people like to hang their door wreath up from the 1st of December. So there's sort of this 2-week window at the moment when people are making their door wreaths, and you may find that you can't actually get hold of any cinnamon sticks. So I thought, wouldn't it be nice if we faked up a cinnamon stick? We used a handy hack, and it's quite good as well that even if you could get hold of cinnamon sticks, it may be that you want to spend your Christmas budget somewhere else this year, and for the look that you'll get, I think you won't be disappointed. So what I have done is I've been into the garden and I have got some sticks. So I was given these sticks, these ones here. Elena, if you're watching, these came from your garden. After I go to my flower class in Canterbury on a Wednesday, I quite often take home all the unused greenery from the people that come to class. But it's, if you had sticks or straight sticks in your garden, you could cut those. And what I'm going to do here, with it being bay, I've got the choice here. I could get a cinnamon stick out of this stretch of bay, but also I will get bay leaves. So if you have someone who enjoys cooking at your home, it may be that you might want to put a hamper together, and why not include some bay here? So you could leave it out to dry, and the recipes just normally call for 1 bay leaf to go into a stew or a casserole. So don't think automatically that because it's a greenery from the garden that you just need to put the leaves straight on the compost. If you've got bay, you could be repurposing the bay. So you're getting 2 uses out of 1. So I love doing this, and the bay leaves are really tactile. And of course, as you touch them, they're releasing their aroma. So we're talking about being out in the garden, embracing the moment. So I've got, the sounds. I could hear the train clunking behind me. I just noticed I could see my breath coming out. My hands are feeling cold. I was worried about my bottom being wet, but fortunately it hasn't rained overnight yet. And then a tactile thing as well, and the noise, the sound. So that's a bit of wax falling off my candles there. I quite like this when you get hold of the leaves and you just work your way down the stem, and then you've got all these lovely leaves that you could reuse again. So what I'm going to do is to cut my stem here into cinnamon stick length. So it's probably about the length of my little finger, 6 centimetres or so. So what I'm going to do for this is to use my secateurs, because I'm not quite sure that my floristry scissors will be up to it. So I tend to use my secateurs upside down. You probably use them like that normally. I sometimes find I got more strength by using them when it looks like it's a parrot's beak there. So I'm going to go. They don't have to be the same length exactly. You'll notice this if you do have fresh cinnamon sticks, that they're not always the same length. But if you do want them the same length, you just need to line them up and cut them to the same length. So I want a reasonably sized bundle here. Because I am using fresh sticks for this, of course you could raise your compost heap. Now we do have, right at the bottom of the garden, we have a dead hedge, not a hedge that is dead, but it's where we put all the garden trimmings that are too woody to go on the compost heap. We have fashioned, as neat as possible, a dead hedge, which is lots of upright poles zigzagged across, and the hedge is about this wide. And as we do the woody trimmings in the garden, we lay those trimmings down between the 2 rows of supports going through to make a brown hedge. So it's quite a work of art, although you may be mistaken that it looks like a darned old mess. So if I hadn't had any fresh twigs to hand, I may well have gone right to the bottom of the garden to get some of my dried out sticks, catch them before they rot down. So getting a bundles here in my hand as we go. And of course, how many you cut is entirely up to you. So I would say that when you bundle your, let's just call them cinnamon sticks, when you bundle your cinnamon sticks together, you probably want, see, I've got here, you probably want about that many. When I hold them, it's sort of that many in my hand, because when you bundle your cinnamon sticks together to put into your decorative arrangements for Christmas, they probably do occupy that amount of space. I would say probably you're bundling at least 3, if not 4, possibly 5 together. So you want it to look like something. You don't want to spend all this time faking up, your poor man's cinnamon sticks if they're looking a little bit insubstantial, but it's entirely up to you. And of course, if you don't have many twigs, you might want to separate them out and have 2 little bundles. Now I wonder whether I can just bring the camera down so you can see a little more closely what I am doing. So I'm quite surprised that my candles are holding up. So there's obviously a reasonably still air today, and they're getting a lovely drippy texture to them. So that is what I have got in front of me. Let's get rid of these bits. And of course, these cinnamon sticks aren't brown, they're green. So if you really wanted to get them to look like cinnamon sticks, you would have to have a look around the garden to see whether you had something that was brown in colour. And of course, my twiggy bits here are probably quite thin. This one is, one of the thickest. So Linda, you're saying a simple but brilliant idea. It is, Linda, and this is what I enjoy about being in the garden. Perhaps you haven't got them. It's about making do with what you've got, making something out of nothing, which I really enjoy doing. And yes, it would be nice to have cinnamon sticks, but sometimes you haven't got the time, the energy or the budget to go out and buy them. So it's just really nice to, especially if you're a gardener, I imagine, as you know, I'm not a gardener, but imagine, you see your whole life cycle in your garden, from seeds to buds, to leaf, to flower, to seed head, and then you can still make use of the bits right at the end. So what I'm going to do here, I've got some garden twine. Again, this is what I use for making my door wreaths. Sometimes I use wire, a mossing wire, and sometimes I bind on my greenery using just, brown garden string. So I'm going to get my bundle of sticks here. If I do it that way. So how many have I got? Again, it depends how many you can hold, how many you want to make. It may be that you do your chopping up and you think, well, I want to end up with 6 bundles, and then you have to do a bit of maths then and try and make them all the same sort of size. So if you want to know how many I've got here, I've got 2, 4, 6, I've got 8, making a little bundle there. So I'm holding them in my hand and then taking my string, and I always try and take my string out from the middle of the ball of string, and I've actually gone round the string with a bit of washi tape in order that the ball doesn't fall apart. And I tend always to keep the string on the reel, because otherwise you end up with tiny bits of string and you don't quite know how much you're going to use. So because these are fresh twigs, I need to bear in mind that once they're out of, they haven't got a water source, they're not, if I've taken them out of a vase or other bucket I had them in, or if I've taken them from the plant, they're not going to take up water and they will dry out, so they will shrink a little bit. So as you bind your string on, you want to be binding on really tightly, because otherwise, if you're a little bit loose, you'll find that by the time you get closer to Christmas and you move your, if you're doing these ahead of time and you think, oh, I've got all my faked up cinnamon sticks ready, I'm going to use them, you'll probably find they'll fall apart. So what I'm doing here is I'm leaving a length of string here because I need to tie a knot when I finish. So I sort of hold that there under my finger, and then I'm going to go round here. So to begin with, it's just a matter of getting round, but as I go round, I'm going to consciously pull reasonably tightly, and you go over as many times as you like. I've gone over 4 times there, cut the end off, and then tie a knot. So it may be that you might need a friend here to put a finger on the knot. So I'm going to go once, and every time I'm pulling it really tightly, like that, and you end up with a little bundle like that. And then what do you do with these strings? Well, you could just cut them off and you could have just little short bits there, or if you wanted it to be fancy dancy, you could tie it in a bow. I would say if you're making loads of these, I would probably just cut the loose ends off, because it's going to be really fiddly making tiny bows out of the little bits of string. But if you're only doing a few, perhaps you're going to put these, if you've got a bowl of potpourri, or you've got a bowl of baubles and pine cones, and you're just putting a few of these sort of faked up cinnamon stick bundles in there, you could tie a bow, but on the whole I don't. So to change it up a little bit, you could use raffia, or you could use a really thin Christmas ribbon. I don't know whether you save ribbons. I quite often as well cut them out of my clothes. And when you get those little on your shoulders, just sort of the clothes falling off the hanger in the shop, you could, you had some decorative ribbon from that, you could add that on the top. And if you don't have much ribbon, what you could do is tie the cinnamon sticks together and then put your ribbon on last of all, so the ribbon would be a decorative finish at the end rather than the actual physical holding of the kebab sticks. So this would be quite nice if you were just going to tumble it into a bowl. But what if you wanted to add this into a flower arrangement or into a door wreath? You need to have some legs on your sticks in order that you can fasten them down into your door wreath. So what I'm going to do is get my bundle of twigs. I've got floristry wires in this bag here. So this is, I would say, if you've got floristry wires at home, I normally go with a 0.70 wire or a 0.90 wire. I find that's nice and strong, does the job. And again, if you're thinking of doing this at home, I will try and remember to leave a link to the wires in the notes underneath the video when it goes live. So it's from here to here. And they're I don't know if you can see it on the camera, they're just they're green wires. So what I do here, again, I leave a little bit of the wire, so probably the top third, and then I've got 2/3 here. And I take the wire and I leave that top third at the top, a bit like we did with the string. And then I take my wire and I wrap it around the twigs. And again, you need to wrap round really securely. So because my wire is a set length, I've only gone around twice here, and then you need to twist off. Quite often, if it hurts your wrist to twist, I pinch the wires and then I rotate the twigs, and they'll end up with a little bundle that's got 2 little legs. And the trick is, have you tied your bundle tight enough, is to hold them and give them a little bit of a shake and a twist. And if they're falling out of here, quite clearly you haven't tightened your wire enough. It may be that you can just go and do a little bit more tightening, or you might need to just discard that wire and think, actually I've got the hang of it now, how tightly I need to twist, and to start again. So when you look at that, because you've got a circular wire going round and a bundle of twigs, you do sometimes get a little bit of gap. So if you did have a space, you can slide an extra twig in, and that'll sort of hold up the space a little bit. And then I would come back with my decorative string, because the wire doesn't look particularly attractive, that you'd want to cover that over. So again, I take my string, my raffia, my ribbon, and I do exactly the same thing as we did with the first bundle, so leaving a little bit of string at the top. And the point now is to cover up that green wire. So I'm going either side of the base there. I've got sort of a couple of wrappings this side of the wire and a couple of wrappings the other side. So you want to cover up the wires. And again, if you were using ribbon and raffia, it would be slightly wider, not quite as gappy as the string, but I think I've got that done there. Cut the string and then tie it in a knot like this. And probably you'd want to do this indoors. I can feel my fingers getting a little bit cold. But equally, I quite like, there's no such thing as bad weather, as they say. You just need to dress up warmly. And I would say if you are working in the garden doing your Christmas prep, you need to put on a really thick pair of socks, whatever you're wearing on your feet. You want a really, really thick pair of socks. So that one there, I've just cut off the string, tufty bit, compared to that one there. So I would say if you know that you want to put your cinnamon sticks into a flower arrangement, into a door wreath, do the wires first and then add in the string second. If you do it the other way round, you'll just find it a little bit tricky getting the wires put in place. So what do you reckon? Do you think you will be making your own poor man's cinnamon sticks for your festive flower arrangements? You'll have to let me know in the comments. And I have got one more question for you. Is 8:15 okay for you on a Tuesday morning, or do you want to bump our little chats further on into the day? The reason that I ask is that it's our last Zoom flower class today at 12 o'clock. So part of the reason why I do the Tuesday video so early in the morning is that I've got other things to do during the day. But how would you feel about, do you want to keep this at 8:15 in the morning? Do you want to go 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or would you like to come along with me in the garden at midday as a direct replacement for Zoom flower class? I'd be quite interested to know what you think about that, and perhaps you could sit in your garden and follow along with me. So if you've got any suggestions of things that you'd like to do, whether you're an experienced flower arranger or you're totally new to doing all these sort of handcrafted flower arranging elements, let me know what you would like me to cover. We could talk about pine cones, we could talk about drying your orange slices. Do you want me to show how to make a wreath from scratch? Do you want me to show you how to make a table arrangement? All with that sort of woodsy garden theme. As you can see, I don't have any roses in my garden, so I can't be doing anything with roses. It's about making the most, doing and mending, making the most of what I've got in my garden in order that I can have a Christmas that's more meaningful, that's got all these references back to my own home, my own garden, and therefore I think sometimes you're just appreciative of things a little bit more. So I'm probably going to wrap up there, but one of my candles has gone out. I don't know about you. I like to light a candle in the morning when I'm making my cup of tea, and I've got 2 candles on my kitchen windowsill, which have been lit perfectly fine, and then I went to light them this morning, and I don't know if it's because the candles are burning down. I can't get my match to light. I could light another one, but there's the wick on one of them just will not light, and it's the one that's blown out here is also the one that was troublesome before I set off on the video. So I'm quite pleased that these candles have lasted throughout the video this morning. They get beaten by the wind and then they come back. So there we go. My little Christmas, my Advent flower arrangement. And because it has been in the wind, I've got some really lovely drips on my candles. I absolutely love that, and it's dripping onto the leaves. But I think I'm coming to the stage now where I will need to trim back a tiny bit, because I think the lit flame is getting a little bit close to some of those twigs there. So I'm going to leave it there and say goodbye, and I will catch up with you next week. So once I've decided what time I'll be coming live next week, I will leave, I'll tell you in my Facebook group, and also I will put a note on the community tab pages. Do you know what that is on YouTube? You can either set your feed up so it just has the videos that come up, or you can set it up so you can see the posts. So I don't always have to put a video up. Look at all those candles. Are they going to survive? Oh, it's the same one, I think, is blown out. You can also see posts that get put up as well. So that's what YouTubers mean when they say check out the community tab. So I'm going to say goodbye now. So thank you for joining me. And if you're watching this later on today, well done for getting to the end of the video. And goodbye, Linda. I'm glad you've enjoyed this morning's chat. And don't forget to let me know, Linda, what time on a Tuesday suits you. I'm more than happy to carry on 8:15, but I didn't know whether perhaps you would have more time later on the day, or like me, you go straight into breakfast and then watching a video instead of having to remember to come back at a later point in time. But do let me know what time suits you and what projects or questions you would like me to explain a little bit more about. So I shall say goodbye, and I'll catch up with you next week.